So we are studying chapter 8 tonight, discussing chapter 8. And there's nothing to say. So we could talk about just about anything we feel like talking about. I don't know what to say. Doesn't seem to be anything to say about this chapter or to rumble over particularly. But maybe you have some questions. I'm going to ask you if you have any questions instead of starting you off with something tonight.
In a really restless mood today, and so I'm glad we're not looking at the book too heavily. I'm having a hard time focusing on it. But yeah. I will say that on my dog walk today, I looked out. No, I heard a train. I heard a train across the water, and I thought, train. And then I thought, this is happening to me all the time since starting this book. And then I swore. Because I used to just hear the train and not think I'm hearing the train.
Right.
And now it's happening to me so often that I will notice myself thinking about something. You know, when I see a thing, I think you're not just seeing it, you're thinking about seeing it. You know, so it's almost like added a new layer. I'm doing exactly the thing I would prefer not to be doing.
Yeah. Well, that's why I want to get through this book fast. No, seriously, I think that I think it's a very important book, and I think it's a very important study. But I also feel that it can become so self-conscious that you start to notice what you're not supposed to do. You start doing what Dōgen says don't do. And I think the important thing is to read this, to take it in, to mark the enormity of it and the importance of it, and then put it away, put it down, and just live. Because the teaching is already in your bloodstream, and it's going to affect you, but we also have to walk away from it in order for that effect to truly, come into residence in us. So exactly what you were saying, Karen, is what I've been worried about for people.
And maybe that's why I'm restless too, is because I just think, I mean, I read like 2/3 of this chapter, and I was kind of like, oh, yes, okay, function. And I just couldn't take any more of it. I was just kind of annoyed with him.
Yeah.
Karen, I wonder which came first, because one of the things he's talking about in this chapter is that there's the fact, and then later there's the cognition or recognition of the fact. So with the train, I wonder if the added layer is the fact or the cognition.
Feel like it's the cognition. Like I feel like there was once upon a time I would hear a train and just relax. Oh, I love the sound of a train. Okay. And I would just sort of drop into the experience of hearing the train. But now I find myself thinking, train. Oh, I'm thinking about train instead of just experiencing the train. So yeah, and then I get annoyed that I'm not, that I have this thing interfering with my experience.
Yeah, that will wear off when we finish this book. As I say, I want us to go one chapter each week now to finish it out. And I think that once we put the book down, that will wear away. And as I say, the true teaching in it will just get into your blood, and it'll be okay again. So,
for what it's worth, I've been alternating reading Gien Roshi with Jundo Koan's book and the Genjo Koan, Realizing the Truth Right Here. And it's a beautiful counterpoint, because, that just kind of, it's such a wide angle lens that every time I get uptight, I Koan's words and come to mind. I'm like, oh yes, wait, just trust.
Go wide. Yeah. 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 But, you know, I wouldn't trade this book for anything. I think it's a profound teaching that is not seen any other places except in our study with Harada Roshi, which is the same teaching. He just approached it differently. And so we are coming off that earlier teaching and then into this one. And so it's a little bit more of a similar teaching. So we've had quite a year of this. It's a lot. It's definitely a lot, but exceptional and important. So I'm grateful for it. Very grateful for it. It's not no other book like it out right now anywhere. So.
Well, I would say, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, compared to Harada Roshi's book, I feel like I got the essence of it more through this book. Yeah. You know, like I didn't leave that book with this nailed down quite the way I have after this book. So I am grateful for that. It's made it much, much clearer. And I'm also very grateful to learn it will dissipate.
Yeah, oh, it will. And we see that we're clear about what he is meaning by essence and where we are in that, where we stand in that Dharma position in essence. So that's so clear, and that's important that be experienced. And again, once we finish this and put it behind, it will just be part of the ocean of your bloodstream. So I think that happens in, you know, any focused Zen books where you are asked to examine your mind so closely. You know, you just get too close to it and you can't put it away. Like starting off a sesshin with a song in your mind. You can't stop hearing that for days on end. You're singing, sit right down, I'm gonna walk right in, sit right down, baby, let your mind roll on. All day after day, you have that going on. And so it's similar to that kind of strain that you get that is hard to let go of. So. Any questions anybody have about any aspect of this chapter? Or, you know, to talk, maybe you'll explain it to me or explain it to us better, all of us better than I could say.
Well, mine wasn't really a question. It was just kind of a reflection that being new to Zen, I felt like he was describing some sort of intuitive experience that I have no experience with. So like at the top of page 171, he says, everything does exist through just this body. In this way, many things exist and then disappear. But what is the deepest source of that appearing and disappearing? Where does such a core exist within you? And I was like, well, you know, I think he's describing something I haven't felt, right? Like that would mean something to other people.
Well, Kirsta, I think you can be sitting Zen for a long time and not come across that particular exploration. So, and I think that that's difficult to work with. I think that's not a simple thing at all. And you know, the issue of the body being here and being visible, we don't have existence without it. When the body disappears, our existence disappears. And the point of the visibility of the body is that Buddha is expressed because we are visible. And so at the same time, the body is not substantial. It is insubstantial. And that's very difficult also to experience. But I still say that that is the heart of Buddhist healing. To recognize that the body itself is insubstantial, that all phenomena is insubstantial, and consequently nothing can attach to it. And that's an important experience. So because nothing can attach to it, it just exists in every moment and is never the same and is empty, is emptiness itself. So none of that is simple to get, Kirsta. It's not simple. But, you know, everything that I just said has to be experienced. To experience the idea or the fact, in Buddhism, it is a fact that the body is insubstantial, is to be experienced. And if we can experience that, if we can sit zazen and realize that the body is insubstantial, we've come a long way, especially then in being able to understand that the eyes are seeing without our doing anything. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to worry about the body at all. It does take care of itself. And as we are told in this chapter, every action is the Dharma, so that they're all occurring before we think about it. Everything occurs on its phenomenal dharmic level in such a way that we do not have to think about it. And when we do think about it, we've missed the essence.
I'm thinking of something encouraging to say to Kirsta, which is that it's not and I want to make sure if this is correct. It's not that abiding in the Dharma is a rarefied experience at all. It's actually so evident, it's so constant. We're so immersed in, but then we have this trailing narrative that obfuscates, clouds and confuses it. So it's about, this is not a foreign experience where we're kind of grasping to understand or have. It's more of a matter of sort of dropping these habits of trying to grasp it, trying to name it, trying to, sort of like it's easy as falling off a log, I guess.
And I think that he says that a few times in this chapter, like just drop everything. Drop all the thinking and trying to pin everything down. So, so that we just be, so that we are. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's not that we've never had the experience, it's that we've never not had it.
This is correct. It's always there. That's the eternal point.
I thought that was the point he was trying to make too, when he gave a couple of examples of wrapping on the lectern, just like I was talking about with Karen a little while ago about the fact and then the cognition. You know, he said he was wrapping on the lectern, and then he said later on your mind thinks, oh, he's wrapping on the lectern. In the middle of the same page on 171, and sort of the middle of the second paragraph, when he says, when you realize the Dharma, oh, the mind only realizes the Dharma exists. So he says that after giving the example of the clapping and the wrapping on the lectern, sort of as a so the Dharma existing is the fact, and then later on you realize it, but the fact is already there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just going to say, following Amir and Karen, same page, middle of the top paragraph, he says the reality exists before your explanation. And I immediately thought, okay, there's the train sound. And then there's the explanation of, oh, it's a train. What kind of train? How many cars? Where's it going? And then a few sentences later, that is the difference between reality and knowledge. And I think, and that's what you were annoyed by, is you were going back and forth between, oh, and my sense is that that's how it is. That, last week he mentioned distinguishing, and it seems to me that you were right on, spot on, distinguishing between these two things that happen. So that's my sense of it. That's just what we do, I think, or at least what I do.
Well, I think that there is distinguishing, and then there is not distinguishing.
Okay, I'm not clear on that.
I just mean that there is distinguishing, and Karen saying, oh, the train, but my goodness, now I'm thinking about the train when before I didn't think, I just heard the train.
Uh-huh.
So there is just hearing the train, and then there is distinguishing between the two. So there's distinguishing, okay. And then there's not distinguishing.
Okay, I see. Oh.
Yeah. And it was Harada Roshi, of course, that we worked over the notion with Harada Roshi that of perception and pre-perception is just another way to understand the experience, that the experience of the existence of something is pre-perception. The essence is pre-perception. And then perception is the naming. And saying, oh, the train is going south. That is perception then. So we did that a good deal with the Harada Roshi book, if you recall. And it's the same thing. It's just different languages being used. Same thing.
I wonder if this experience is somewhat parallel to what Karen was talking about. I'll have these subtle judgments of, I'll say to myself, okay, and trust the sense functions, and then immediately rushing in will be this, oh, good, yes, I just experienced that sensation, and then I'll be like, oh, damn it, that I get myself kind of, chasing my tail.
That's exactly why I want to finish this book.
Yeah, it's not good for neurotic people like me.
It's definitely not for anybody. I mean, you can get too, whatever you call this, tunnel vision with something, and get too insane with it, and too absorbed or upset that you might not be doing it or getting it. And we all are in it. So as I say, we're going to finish it out and we're going to forget about it. Not entirely, of course, but but receive the teaching in the bloodstream. When I was in training at Shoboji, we were not permitted to write anything down in training. You had to learn the bells as they were. You had to learn everything. No writing down, because it got into the blood and the sinew and the muscles, so that the body simply reacted and did what it needed to do. So you weren't thinking, oh, do I do 7? You just knew that. And so I have tried to do that something here, so that we understand that practice is the body doing it. Just the body doing it. We don't have to think or name it. And all of the forms are of the body, and the body moving in particular ways. And so ultimately we do it without any notion of it's being something that we have to think about. And that's the point. I mean, that's the heart of practice, that we don't think about it, but we excel at the excellent aspect of doing awakening. That's what we are doing. We are doing awakening so that the body is doing it.
I'm super grateful that tonight, when I was cutting up carrots and shallots and cabbage for dinner, that I wasn't thinking, you're cutting up carrots and shallots and cabbage for dinner. I was just doing it. And so I think that when I do notice it, it's probably my noticing that I'm thinking about it happens much less often than my not thinking about it and noticing it. Or anyway. But those times when it's been happening, it's just so annoying. And I need to put it in perspective, that it's not going on all the time. And I'm really grateful to learn it will go into the background.
It will. Yeah. The train's gone. The train will go away. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Well, speaking of being annoyed, can we talk about this koan, does a dog have Buddha nature? That's always really bugged me. If we say that all sentient beings have Buddha nature, why don't we say a dog has Buddha nature? I hate koans, but can you talk about that? Why isn't it just, yes, a dog has Buddha nature?
Well, you could answer yes if you want to. If you really got moo and somebody said to you, does a dog have Buddha nature? You could answer yes. If you really got it. You could answer anything you wanted to that. You could answer no, you could answer yes. You could answer, well, maybe. You could answer, there's a rose out on the bush now. I mean, you can answer anything, provided that you experienced moo. Then yes is a perfectly fine answer. Provided moo had been experienced.
And well, then can you apply that to anything, that there's no definitive answer from the perspective of moo?
Of course. You can say that about every koan. There's no one answer to any koan, because the koans are acted out from your experience of the realization of the koan. There's all aspects of moo. If you get moo, then you do all the other koans follow along. And so really only need two koans. Koan moo and the second koan, that we are all subject to causality. And those are the two most important koans. And once again, the koan moo is the experience of emptiness, which is what this book is all about. It is what Gien Roshi is driving at, that when we have the experience of eyes seeing without me being there, we open to emptiness. There's a realization takes place in that. And so if you get that, you can answer whatever you want to. Go on. I mean, it's like Bodhidharma. He says, vast emptiness, nothing special. So I've students who have come and who've just, sort of thrown stuff around and something, and they say, oh, but nothing special. I said, but wait a minute. Nothing special means vast emptiness has been realized. You can't say nothing special unless you really experience vast emptiness. Then nothing special. But you can't just say that nothing special just because you think that there's nothing special. It's vast emptiness. In the same with it's the same thing with koan mu. Once you get it, you can say whatever you want.
Well, I obviously haven't gotten it yet. That's why I'm sure that's why that koan annoys me. I haven't gotten mu.
I do recall.
If I could,
just a second, but I do recall being in the Zendo with Kobun Roshi, and he did ask that. There was a discussion about that. And I asked the question, does a woman have Buddha nature? That was very bad. That got me in big trouble. So, I mean, there had been the belief that a woman could not experience nirvana. A woman could not experience enlightenment, that you had to be a man to experience enlightenment. And there are still some who believe that. So I asked the question, does a woman have Buddha nature?
Tell us about the trouble. What trouble did you get in for? Was it because you basically pointed to, like, the emperor has no clothes? Like, this is obviously.
Yeah, that sort of thing. That sort of thing. It was like I was being a smart aleck. And I was. I mean, I am a smart aleck. So.
Can I say something?
Okay, Nikki, sure. Yeah.
As a person who worked on koan mu for about a year with two different teachers in the Rinzai tradition, the conclusion that I came to was that the path of koan study was not the right path for me. But be that as it may, every little koan study that you read has a checking question. And in the case of koan mu, the checking question, there's about 17 different checking questions that you go through. And the question is not, does a dog have Buddha nature? That question you won't be asked. So I just throw that out.
Yeah.
It's a different question and I won't tell.
Yeah, but that's the classic, that's what's written in the classic koan,
In the story. The story comes out of the situation in which that question was asked, and the teacher in response didn't give the expected doctrinal answer. He gave this very surprising and provocative answer instead, and that's what you're dealing with.
Right.
And yes, you are quite right. You can't answer in words.
Yeah.
It's meant to provoke a certain kind of experience.
Right. As all the koans are.
Oh, yes, all of them are.
What they are about. It's to throw you beyond all that we are talking about, to throw you beyond perception, to throw you beyond the cognitive and the world of language, and to just go beyond all of that and to see through into it and to break open.
So just keep sitting and don't think about no. That's my advice.
Well, I mean, we could also say that Zazen is mu. It is.
Yes.
It is the posture and I'm going to say the Dharma position of mu, because I really like that Harada Roshi gave us that each moment is that Dharma position. And so that in Zazen, that is that experience of being mu in that Zazen, that Dharma position. I don't mean physically position. It's that essence moment of sitting inside Mu itself.
I thought of the koan reading it in a particular way where if we're talking about Buddha nature and you ask if a dog or anything else has Buddha nature, then Buddha nature has to be defined. It has to have a resting place if you're going to say that, yes, this belongs in or not. There has to be, if you're going to talk in those terms, there has to be a fixed thing that something either is a part of or is not. Buddha nature being characterized by emptiness doesn't give you that opportunity to say, yes, this belongs inside the circle, this belongs outside of it. And so that's kind of, I mean, I'm not saying I have the answer or an understanding, but those are the terms that I'm kind of approaching it with.
That is very logical.
So maybe that means that's not such a good thing then.
You know, the dog is not the dog, and Buddha nature is not something that we think. So we have to go beyond any formation of logic that the dog and the Buddha nature are something at all. So that is what the sitting inside Mu is, going beyond any of that cognitive notion or that logical trying to put those pieces together, leaping beyond those. So.
And Dōgen in Busho even, maybe even makes it even more confusing because the way that he says, he defines Mu is, it is without. Does a dog have Buddha nature? It is without.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to figure out what is this without.
Sure. So without a fixed state is maybe what Dōgen Zenji is meaning then, so that we can't arrest anything upon it. Just as is pointing out in this chapter, that without is once again the insubstantial and beyond what we are thinking. So. And of course, the word Mu, it's so interesting. Before in America, before I went to Japan, I had this reverence around this word Mu because it means emptiness. And then you go to Japan and you see that character everywhere, right, John? You see Mu written on storefronts, and because it's a word. And it means not this, or it can mean all kinds of things in relationship to other kanji. And it's startling to see it because I just had I revered it, the kanji of it. It's a word in the vocabulary. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's where I saw it first. I didn't see it through Zen first. I saw it in Japanese written as part of other words.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It can mean, not going to the store today, Mu something or other. It means not. It just means nothing, not. Yeah. And it can change also. And so it's you just see it in the daily signs on the street or whatever. It's most interesting. So yeah.
Edo-san.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Gilda.
This emptiness is still something. It's an experience, yes? It is. It's without thinking, nothing. It's an awareness. Can I say that about it? For example, when one is in meditation, when one is in that space, and there's a sense of presence.
Sure.
Is that what the emptiness is?
Well, I think that we can't make it something. That we can't say that it is something, because that objectifies it and it makes it too concrete. And it's just not that. And Allison got a really interesting answer from Inoue Kondo Roshi when Allison asked about awareness. And Allison said, so what did you ask? Do I need to worry about awareness? And he says, no. Or no, do I need to be aware? And he says, no. Say something about that, Allison, and please unmute.
Yeah, I was talking about seeing, hearing, without thinking. And so my follow-up question was, do I need to be aware that they're seeing and hearing without thinking? And of course, if you're aware. So anyway, he was saying, I can't remember. He made some kind of analogy that made it sound kind of silly. That if you had to be aware, it just didn't make sense. So I can't remember exactly.
He said, I have notes. I went to my notes.
Okay.
He said, imagine if you felt you needed to direct your eyes all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
And
so I think there's this base awareness that we don't even have to think about. Maybe, they're seeing. Obviously, but once you say awareness, you're making it into something. And we have to use words when we talk about this, but so there's the experience of seeing, hearing, all the functions, without anything on top of it, without anything extra.
So I want to suggest that instead of saying aware, I want to say that we are open. Open.
Okay.
And by being open to by being the awakeness of each moment, it simply occurs. It simply happens. And so, the struggle right now for many is, I'm going to be aware. I'm going to practice being present. And so there's this extra thing that happens in the mind where the mind is watching itself be present. And we're trying to go past that, where the mind is watching itself, where we're here and we don't have to be anything other than here. Now, of course, we're going to perform and talk and be human together, but we don't have to design it in any way. Open, we're just open. I think that's how I want to say it. None of this suggests that we're dead in any way, or that one's intellect is not functioning. The intellect is an important functioning. We know what to do. We already know where things are, and we don't have to relearn them pretty much, most of us, in everyday life. We do have to learn some new things, but basically we don't have to worry. And that is the intellect functioning for us, and seeing that if the glass is sitting on the edge of the table and it's about to fall off, we just go for it and we move it off the edge. That's the intellect at work, and one's sensibilities at work. And we're open to seeing and being alive.
This is reminding me of a story I heard just today. a patient recently died, and her husband has the beginnings of dementia. And their daughter was caring for him the day that she died, that the patient died, his wife. And he came into the kitchen and said, "I don't know what to do." And she said to him, "Well, Dad, how about you take a shower?" And he said, "Oh, okay." And he knew exactly what to do. He took the shower, he dressed, he came back and said, "I don't know what to do." And she said, "Well, I don't know where these dishes go, Dad. You do. How about you put them away?" He said, "Oh, isn't that just beautiful, loving care?"
Gosh, that is gorgeous.
And also just a beautiful illustration of what you're talking about that man's just unself-conscious brilliance.
Right. That's a great story, Bill. That's a beautiful story. And of that daughter's care of him, to know to be with him in that way. How beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah. So it is like that, it's I have recommended this book so many times, the War of Art. And it's all about resistance. It's such a great little book. I read it every now and then again, because it's talking about resistance in a way that is an aspect of almost everything in life, that we resist. And I mean, one thing that I resist is emptying the dishwasher. I don't know if other people have that resistance, but while I was up in Port Angeles, I just emptied the dishwasher. It wasn't my dishwasher, but it just needed to be emptied. And so I did it. And I've been just emptying my dishwasher since I came back, which is nice to not have resistance to think, oh, I have to empty the dishwasher. So the question of resistance, I don't know what I was going to go with that. I was going to go somewhere with that around much of this, where we come up against things that we don't want to meet. And we have this underlying resistance to so many things. And this has much to do with picking and choosing. And everything would be just fine in life except for picking and choosing, right? We all know that Zen thingy. And so resistance is about that. And carrying resistance is really, really hard on our lives, because we don't paint, or we don't write, or we don't play ball, or we don't do the things that are just naturally done. And so coming to terms with the fact of resistance in life, I think, is also an important point about getting past this mental, this mind boggle of breaking through, resisting something, maybe resisting letting go of who we think we are, because we think we'll be somebody else if we don't keep behaving the way or thinking the way we usually do. So we tend to resist true change. We resist true awakening, because we're just sure that we won't be the same person, and it's just not true. So consider resistance. Consider looking at resistance in oneself. And I really recommend that book. It's a little pamphlet. It's a little tiny book. It's only about 80 pages, and it's not even full pages. It's a little book, The War of Art, and it has to do with creativity And the fact that we all want to be doing something and we resist doing it because resistance is a given in life, absolute given. So consider book. It's by Stephen Pressfield.
I actually got that book at your suggestion when you were doing the course on the poetry and everything. And I guess I'm experiencing resistance because I haven't started reading it yet. I kind of started reading it a little bit and I thought, oh, this will be really good. I'll get to this. And I still haven't started it. Maybe I will tonight.
It's just, it's a hard book because you see resistance everywhere. It's like this book where you see your mind everywhere and everything. And so you see resistance in everything and you just get sick of the book after a while and you just want to finish it and get it out of the way, which you also have to do. But it's such a teaching in what is roiling in us constantly around so many things. Just sheer don't wanna, sheer not now, sheer maybe later. It's a really interesting phenomenon, and it's everybody's got it. It's everywhere, and we certainly see it in our national.
I just noticed it's available.
Yeah,
it's available as a free PDF, so you can just Google it and download it. It's
fantastic. Yeah. I quoted it years ago in a newsletter, and I wrote to Stephen Pressfield and got permission to use his quote. And he immediately sent us 10 copies of it and wrote me a letter. And I wrote back and forth. And he was so happy to have a Zen master and all of that sort of thing. He's just put out a new book also. And he's a very fine writer. He's the guy who wrote Bagger Vance. Remember the story of Bagger Vance, the golfer. So to me, it's his discovery of that and the persistence of resistance in life, to me, is a profound teaching that I feel is worth everybody taking a look at. And I think it opens us up to clearing away some of the baggage that we carry around it. So you'll still be who you are. You are who you are. You will still be this particular existence in awakening. You're still yourself. For better or worse.
I think I shared with you that as a psychiatric nurse, I think therapy is so important. And so I was speaking to my therapist recently about resistance. He was a Zen monk in Rhode Island for some time. Huh. And his life trajectory has changed. And we talked about surrender to that resistance, and then what happens, right? What do you do once you sort of surrender to the fact that you're resisting something? And then he specializes in focusing. He says focus action then can happen. So we talked about it a little bit further, and I said, so for example, if I'm decluttering and I have all this emotional attachment to something that I don't want to get rid of, I'll just resist the whole thing and walk away. And the recommendation was, to surrender to the fact that you're resisting dealing with the emotional. And once you surrender to that, you can take the focused action. I just thought that was an interesting take, because I was confused between what resistance is and what an obstacle was, But,
Right. Yeah. Resistance is really subtle in us. Very, very subtle. Yeah, Bill. Oh, sorry. It's extremely subtle and wily and like that, you want to clean out the bookcase or something like that, and you just can't face all that stuff. And so you said, oh, maybe I'll make a stew instead. I think I'll wash the kitchen floor. So it's extremely difficult in our lives. Well worth exploring.
Yeah, taxes come to mind when you mention that. Doing my taxes every year. I can think of a million things I'd rather be doing, but I have to do it every year. And and when you said that, I was thinking, because that desk I do it is sitting behind me and going, yeah, I thought I was going to do that for an hour today, but no, I found the resistance not to. Now I got to guilt myself into it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's true. It's everywhere.
It is. It's in almost everything we do. And just clearing out some to understand that we don't get to do, we stop ourselves from doing the very thing that completes us, or the very creative activity that restores the soul. We stop ourselves from that restoration. And so it's well worth considering and understanding and seeing where we are stopping ourselves in our lives. And again, that is about awakening, where we hesitate to enter that experience. We resist allowing the experience to overcome us. It's scary. We think it's scary, or we think that we're going to be changed, or that the mind is something is going to happen to it, and it's not. It's simply we're released from the bondage of the ego. It's really simple. It's just a release. So it's worth allowing, not resisting. Yeah. So anybody have anything else tonight? I think this was good. I think this was a nice evening. And so I think we completed our conversation. So next week, the next chapter will be the need to practice in accordance with the way. It's also a fairly brief chapter, and let's take it. And then the week after, we'll finish out the book in a couple of weeks then. So. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassed, I vow to become it.